With only 5 to her name, the inspiring blind date revealed a hidden bond with a surprising CEO. Lauren stood in front of her cluttered studio, flicking through the disorienting mess of half-finished canvases and old paint tubes. Each stroke and splatter reflected a flicker of her dreams, now overshadowed by the financial abyss staring back at her. $5. That was all she had left. The weight of anxiety pressed down on her chest, turning her artistry into a mere echo of what it once was. Every moment felt like a countdown, a relentless reminder of her mother's lessons on perseverance now tangled with the truth that hard work didn't always yield a safety net. Just try it, her mother had urged, coaxing her into the blind date. You need a little distraction. But distraction was a dangerous game when every laugh could echo in her heart, mingling with the desperate thought that she was spiraling. When she finally put on her best dress, its vibrant colors muted by time and lack of funds, an unfamiliar spark of hope streaked through the haze of despair. Maybe just for tonight, she could cast aside her worries. Upon entering the diner, warmth flooded her as she found Mark, his confident smile easier to swallow than she anticipated. He seemed like someone who had it all together, while she felt like a patchwork of failures. As they shared stories over greasy burgers and thick milkshakes, their laughter softened the loneliness surrounding them. I feel like I'm always fighting, Lauren confessed, the words slipping out unguarded. Art wasn't supposed to feel like an uphill climb. She was surprised by the depth of comfort that bloomed between them. Mark nodded, revealing with a slight frown how corporate expectations towered over him as well, chaining him to the fearful legacy of his family's struggles. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Lauren felt the pull of attraction, but lurking beneath was the uncomfortable knowledge of her morals. As they grew closer, something sinister bubbled within Mark's company, practices that didn't align with the values she'd painstakingly been taught. With every date, her heart warred with a sense of justice that reeled like a tether dragging her down. Viewing him through a lens of admiration quickly transitioned beneath her turmoil into a blurred image of compassion and ethical obligation. She loved him, yes, she could see that. Mark's kindness made her feel whole in a world where hope felt scarce. But then, images of downtrodden employees flickered in her mind. Their lives could be altered by decisions spinning from Mark's ambitions. Was she, too, destined to wear the mask of ignorance, just as others did when faced with a painful truth? The tension escalated as Lauren wrestled with doubt. Each romantic moment echoed with the clanging weight of truth she couldn't shake. Could she confront him, or would revealing the reality destroy what had grown between them? The intoxication of love remained interlaced with an overwhelming urge to seek justice. Her art screamed for revival, yet here she was, stumbling at the precipice of an unfathomable choice, torn between the man and the ethics she feared losing. With the smell of fried food heavy in the air, Lauren knew she had to speak soon. As she prepared for what felt like an inevitable confession, she could feel the bond they had established beginning to tremble under the weight of her impending revelation. Her heart raced, a jagged string of uncertainty pulled tight between loyalty and righteousness. The moment lingered, pregnant with the unvoiced truths, threatening to tip the delicate scale between compassion and conscience. Where would her loyalty lie when the clock began ticking and the truth could either save or break them both? Lauren sat across from Mark, the diner's neon lights painting streaks of color across their faces, a jarring contrast to the growing darkness inside her. Her pulse quickened as the conversation flowed around small talk and laughter, but beneath the surface, the weight of her internal conflict surged. Each bite of her burger felt like a pulse in a race against time, an echo of the moment she knew she had to choose, love or truth. Lauren, you okay? Mark tilted his head, a flicker of concern narrowing his golden brown eyes. Yeah, just thinking, she replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. The moment felt heavy with expectation as she wrestled with whether to shatter the fragile world they had crafted over shared meals and simple joys. Thinking about Art. He prodded, glancing at the remnants of her untouched food, knowing how passionate she was about her craft. Thinking about the ethics of what we create, she said cautiously. The words seemed to escape her like whispers blown on a breeze. Mark frowned slightly, and she could tell he sensed the shift in tone. What do you mean? Ethics aren't really part of what you do, are they? His question pierced through her, exposing the chasm that lay between them. That's where you're wrong, she asserted, a sudden rush of determination igniting her heart. Art is about truth. It's about authenticity, and purpose. Mark's expression morphed from curiosity to defiance as he retorted, but art can't solve everything. Sometimes we just create to survive. But at what cost? She shot back, realizing how built up her frustrations had been, how they clung to her like a hush. You know your company isn't making the best choices for its employees, don't you? The moment hung in the air, the ambience cooling as tension gripped them. Mark's reaction was instant. The playfulness of their previous conversations dissipated. Where is this coming from, Lauren? From a place of concern, she breathed, feeling the heat of vulnerability wash over her. You don't have to accept the ethics of the situation just because it's how things have always been done. For a long beat, Mark searched her face, dissecting the very words he had uttered. You think I don't care? His voice held a strange edge, one that struck her heart as a deep tremor of truth. I think you're caught in a web of expectations, she said, her voice softening as compassion slid in to carry the weight of her feelings. And I can't pretend I'm okay with that either. A silence drew between them, thick and suffocating. She felt the room close in, the chatter around them fading into an inaudible background hum. He looked wounded, grappling with the comparison of herself to his own world, a world she feared would drown out his passion. I want to help change things, Lauren said quietly, determined not to let fear derail her voice. I can't let love blind me to the truth, Mark. My work is my voice, and every stroke matters, you know that better than anyone. But what if I'm just a cog in the wheel? He said, vulnerability spilling from his defenses. I can't change everything, Lauren. What good is love if we're constantly fighting reality? What good is reality if we abandon love? She felt her heart thundering a battle. The question came laden with deeper implications, echoing with the risk of emotional ruin or profound revelation. I should have known you wouldn't just accept things, he whispered, the sadness in his eyes hinting at unrelenting regret, but mixed with a glimmer of something else. Resolve. The moment drifted, teetering on the precipice of an uncharted territory of raw emotion and revelation. She wanted to reach across the table, to grasp his hand and pull him toward a new vision, a place where ethics and love could coexist. Yet her own foundations felt unstable. As the reality of this junction unfolded, she realized she wasn't just standing at the edge of understanding his world, she was about to plunge into the depths of her own. What path would unfold as they navigated the collision between affection and accountability? A powerful whirlwind was rising within her, one that demanded clarity. With her heart in her throat, Lauren contemplated her next words, the truth aching to spill. The time had come to face not just him, but the fear that quaked inside her, a fear tethered to her art, her conscience, and the love she couldn't shake. Mark, she breathed, what if we could create a different reality together? As she leaned closer, an electric tension pulsed between them. Would he dare to join her, or retreat into the safety of his past decisions? Lauren could feel the air between them shift, charged with an unspoken challenge. Mark's gaze locked onto hers, revealing the inner struggle that mirrored her own. She took a deep breath, courage swelling in her chest, as she pondered the implications of their conversation. It wasn't merely about truth and love, it was about the responsibility they each bore, both in their personal lives and their careers. Creative authenticity doesn't exist in a vacuum, Mark, she pressed on, her voice firm yet tinged with an underlying urgency. If our work stands for nothing, then what are we really doing? Mark's brow furrowed as if wrestling with an equation he couldn't solve. Behind his eyes, Lauren saw something shift, a determination battling against resignation. It sounds romantic, but companies are built on systems, he replied, his fingers drumming against the table anxiously. People are expendable. Her heart sank a little. You think that, but you have the power to change that within your own sphere. It starts with acknowledging the struggle of your coworkers, making choices that benefit everyone, not just the bottom line. He paused, leaning back as he mulled over her words. Maybe you're right. But how do I confront my own role in it without losing everything I've built? What he didn't realize, she thought, was that he was already losing himself. The idealist in her wanted to reach out and cling to hope, but she also understood the stakes. They both faced a precipice of change that could reshape their futures. Sometimes, taking a step back is necessary, Lauren said, her voice barely above a whisper. You're already questioning the status quo. That's the first step toward creating a reality where your values and your profession can align. A flicker of resolve sparked in his gaze, and her pulse quickened in tandem. What's your end goal then, Lauren? To inspire everyone to quit their jobs and become artists? Sarcasm dripped from his tone, but there was no malice, only fear. No, she corrected, her expression softening. I dream of a world where creativity and corporate responsibility go hand in hand. If I can infuse my art with authenticity and ethics, perhaps you can take those ideals into your workplace too. It's about sparking a conversation. The diner's neon lights pulsed rhythmically, casting shifting shadows that contrasted the turmoil in her heart. It was a fitting backdrop, vivid, chaotic, a reminder of life's unpredictability. Do you truly believe that no matter the circumstances we can affect change? Mark asked, genuine curiosity breaking through the barrier of skepticism. I must believe it, she replied, her voice steady despite the storm raging within her. If I don't, I compromise everything I stand for. Call it naive, but I refuse to be a cog in this relentless machine without a purpose. The silence that followed held the weight of 100 unspoken ideas, a fragile thread connecting them over uncharted waters. For the first time, it felt like they were both heading toward a shared vision, both willing to navigate the uncertainty ahead. All right, he finally said, the tension dissipating into something hopeful. I'm willing to explore this concept. Let's figure out how to breathe life into our ideas. A smile broke across her face, a mixture of pride and realization. This was a challenge unlike any other, one that tested their convictions, their strengths, and their vulnerabilities. As she processed the possibilities lingering on the horizon, she felt something within her start to shift. The road ahead was fraught with discomfort and complexity, but she was no longer the only driver. Together, they could carve out paths she had never envisioned, but just as she felt buoyant hope swell in her chest, an unsettling thought clawed at her mind. Was she truly ready to forge ahead with him? Lauren's heart thudded as she challenged herself internally. What if embracing this relationship meant she would have to face her greatest fears about love, ambition, and identity? Mark, she confessed suddenly, her tone shifting as apprehension clashed. With excitement, I feel like I'm standing on shaky ground. What if this new direction ends up defining who I really am? As Mark's expression turned serious and contemplative, she anxiously awaited his response, bracing herself for whatever revelation awaited them both. Would they take this leap together, or would uncertainty tear them apart? Lauren's words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of possibility and anxiety. She could see the wheels turning in Mark's mind, a mix of apprehension and intrigue. It was as if they were standing at the edge of a vast canyon, peering into the unknown. What if we approach this differently? He finally said, his eyes glinting with determination. What if we turned our talks into something actionable? We could host a workshop, gather a few co-workers and begin a dialogue about authenticity and creativity in our roles. It could be a start. The suggestion startled her, good ideas often had that effect. You think people will actually show up? The corporate world isn't exactly known for its openness to change. They might surprise you, he countered, enthusiasm creeping into his voice. The truth is, people feel trapped. I speak with them all the time. The pressure, the monotony, it weighs heavily on everyone. Maybe this is what they need, a chance to express. She considered his words, the flicker of hope reigniting. Could this be a way forward? It was a step beyond mere discussion, it could lay a foundation for meaningful change. Yet, niggling doubts threatened to undermine her excitement. But what if it fails? She blurted out, the vulnerability seeping into her tone. What if it doesn't produce the interest we need? Then we adapt, he responded quickly. Growth happens in discomfort. Isn't that what you said? Taking risks requires courage. If we fail, it'll just mean we learned how not to approach it next time. His passion resonated within her, igniting her own desires for authenticity and impact. She felt invigorated yet unsteady, poised on the brink of a significant change. You really believe in this, don't you? She asked, searching his gaze. I do, he replied, unwavering. When I think about the decisions I've made in my career, I've been so focused on climbing that I've almost forgotten why I started this journey in the first place. I don't want to be a hollow version of myself anymore. His sincerity hit her, reminding her that their paths, though veering in opposite directions initially, had been fueled by the same desire for fulfillment. Then let us do it, she agreed, her heart racing with anticipation. Let us set the date. As they sketched out preliminary plans on the back of a napkin, ideas blossomed. Their vision felt almost tangible, like the aroma of fresh coffee wafting around them. Yet, amid this creative surge, a part of Lauren recoiled. What if stepping into this role meant revealing parts of her she had long kept hidden? Sharing her aspirations with those around her could expose her vulnerabilities, turning her ambitions into targets for critique. She shook her head, hoping to dispel the creeping self-doubt. You know, there's a risk that comes with this. I don't want to disappoint anyone if I step out and fail. Mark leaned in, his tone earnest yet gentle. Then we can share our fears too. That makes it real, makes it personal. We're not masterminding a corporate initiative, we're fostering a community. If it's authentic, that will resonate, won't it? Her pulse quickened. The thought of standing in front of a room full of co-workers, revealing her truth, made her stomach flip. But there was something liberating about it too, this desire to break free, even if it meant tearing down walls that had protected her. Just then, a figure walked into the diner, their presence strikingly out of place. The handsome newcomer looked around, his sharp suit contrasting with the casual ambience. Something about his determined gait sparked an unexpected sense of recognition within Lauren. In the back of her mind, an unsettling thought flashed. Was he someone she would have to confront in this newfound venture? Mark noticed her distraction and followed her gaze. Who is that? He asked. I think that's David, the CEO, Lauren stuttered, her heart racing. He is notorious for his hands-off approach to the creative teams but has always followed our projects closely. Mark's eyes widened briefly. Interesting. Do you think he is here for a reason? Before Lauren could respond, David caught sight of them. He approached with a forceful presence, and Lauren felt the familiar knot of anxiety tighten in her chest. Would this encounter change everything? With a single question lingering in her mind, she braced herself for whatever revelation awaited them next. David's stride was confident, each step measured as if he were traversing the precipice of power itself. The din of the diner faded against the roaring pulse in Lauren's ears. She caught Mark's eye, both unspoken questions hanging between them. What would he say? What did he want? As David reached their table, he cast a cursory glance at their hastily scribbled notes. A flicker of recognition passed through his sharp gaze. Mark. Lauren, he acknowledged, his tone deceptively casual, concealing the weight of authority that came with his title. What are you two cooking up? Lauren's mind spun, her carefully constructed framework for the workshop evaporating in an instant. Had he overheard their conversation? Could he discern her ambitions buried beneath layers of fear? Just a brainstorming session, really, she stammered, her voice lacking the confidence she craved. "Brainstorming is good," David said, leaning into the conversation, though he remained standing, towering in his tailored suit. "I encourage creativity so long as it translates to results," he added, a shadow of challenge flickering in his expression. There was the reminder that the corporate world thrived on outcomes, often at the expense of authenticity. Mark, sensing the tension, interjected. "We believe in fostering a space for expressing ideas, pushing the boundaries a bit." David's brow raised slightly, intrigued. "And how do you plan to implement that? Seems risky in our environment." His words dripped with skepticism, leaving Lauren feeling vulnerable, each second pulsating with the unspoken pressure to explain her vision. Swallowing her apprehension, a surge of determination took hold. "We want to create a workshop focused on authenticity and collaboration," she said, surprising herself with the steadiness in her voice. "We think it might help break through the monotony many of us feel. An opportunity for genuine connection in our work that leads to real changes." David's eyes narrowed, weighing the implications of her proposal. The atmosphere hung thick with uncertainty. Perhaps he saw through her steely resolve, perhaps he sensed her quiet challenges. Flashes of confidence clashed with vulnerability within her. "A good concept," he finally conceded, though Lauren saw through the thin veneer of approval. "But whether anyone buys in, well, that's another story, isn't it?" Challenged, her thoughts raced. The specter of failure loomed larger. What if it didn't matter if they showed up? She countered, the words spilling out before she could pull them back. What if we did it for ourselves? To validate our desire for authenticity, regardless of the corporate pushback. Mark's gaze shifted between her and David, the tension palpable. David appeared taken aback, a flicker of interest igniting in his expression. "So you're saying you're willing to risk your reputations for the sake of an experiment?" The weight of his words hung in the air, and for a fleeting moment, Lauren envisioned stepping into uncharted territory, risking everything for something profound. The idea sent shivers down her spine, both terrifying and exhilarated. "Absolutely," she replied, her voice firmer than she felt. "That's the only way we can evolve." David tilted his head slightly, scrutinizing her. "Interesting. I'll be watching how this unfolds." With that, he turned to leave, pausing as he glanced back at them. "Just be prepared, vulnerability can come with consequences." As he walked away, Lauren felt a rush of adrenaline, a powerful mixture of empowerment and fear. The path before her was laden with possibilities, yet daunting. She turned to Mark, whose eyes sparkled with an understanding that ran deeper than words. "Did you see that?" he asked, excitement lacing his tone. "Yeah," she replied, heart pounding. "But was it enough?" Mark reached across the table, his hand steadying her distraction. "Even if it isn't, it's our first step. We're moving, Lauren." With newfound clarity, a sense of validity began to settle into her bones. She wasn't just dreaming anymore, she was actively participating in her evolution. Yet the ghosts of her self-doubt whispered warnings, fanning the flames of anxiety. What if she wasn't enough? With those thoughts racing in her mind, she felt the poignant tug of uncertainty. Would the risks they discussed lead to success or expose her to ridicule? This endeavor was only the beginning, and the real confrontation with her own fears loomed ahead. In that moment, surrounded by the footsteps of patrons and the clinks of dishes, she realized she stood at a pivotal crossroads. What awaited her was an unraveling of both professional aspirations and personal truths. With her very identity at stake, the next move awaited. Would she step into this space of vulnerability and authenticity or retreat back into the shadows? The decision lingered heavily, accompanied by the fear that just maybe, confronting her true self would be the toughest challenge of all. Lauren sat at her desk the next morning, the fluorescent lights above buzzing faintly, each tone amplifying her internal chaos. The humdrum of corporate life felt starkly contrasting to the fervor she tasted at the diner. It wasn't merely about the workshop or challenging David anymore, it was about her drive to carve out a semblance of authenticity within herself and her role. She glanced at the empty space on her whiteboard where her workshop ideas were supposed to take shape. Inspiration felt like a distant promise, and yet the memory of her conversation with David lingered like a double-edged sword. A vivid reminder of her resolve to embrace her vulnerabilities combined with the lingering dread of potential failure. The digital clock on her desk blinked, and Lauren's fingers hovered over the keyboard. An email draft lay open before her, a call to action for her colleagues. The hesitation was palpable, as if each keystroke ricocheted within her. What kind of reception would they give? A plea for authenticity in the stifling environment of their office. She could see their faces, expressions flickering between skepticism and indifference. Yet, an ember of determination flared within her when she remembered the glimmer of hope in Mark's eyes. He believed in this idea, so perhaps others would too. She took a deep breath, letting it linger as a moment of grounding. With deliberate intent, Lauren started crafting the message. Join us for a workshop focused on authenticity and collaboration. Let us break free from the monotony. Each sentence felt heavier, a blend of clarity and anxiety. It wasn't just an email, it was a stake in the ground. As she typed, self-doubt crept in, wrapping around her like vines. What if no one responded? What if they ridiculed her efforts? The last phrase slipped from her fingers before she could second-guess herself. Let us explore the power of vulnerability together. Together, we can foster genuine connections. With a trembling finger, she hit send. The moment stretched a heartbeat longer than it should have, the weight of the decision crashing over her. A part of her mourned the safety of conformity while another blazed defiantly at the prospect of engaging her peers in something real. Time seemed to expand in the aftermath, and Lauren occupied herself with her routine tasks. The office buzzed, co-workers drifting past like ships in a fog. Hours crawled, each tick a stark reminder of her potential isolation. But then, a notification pinged on her computer. A response. Her heart raced. Count me in. Sounds exciting. It was Handy Lisa from marketing, known for her enthusiasm that often masked her reservations. As Lauren read the response, a flicker of encouragement jumped within her. One turned into two, and soon, her inbox filled with tentative but optimistic replies. Each name sent a wave of warmth through her spirit. This was happening. People were willing to take the leap into authenticity alongside her. In the midst of her excitement, however, reality reasserted itself. The pressure loomed larger now. She had to deliver. With every affirmation, the fear of inadequacy resurfaced, tightening like a noose. Would she be able to lead the workshop effectively? What if she faltered in the face of their expectation? Days passed, and anticipation transformed into anxiety. Lauren spent her evenings alone, sketching notes, exercises for participants, visualizing how the workshop could unfold. The night before the event, it struck her she was not just organizing an experience for others, she was inviting them into the depths of her own vulnerability. This realization sent tremors through her. It was exhilarating and terrifying. The stakes were higher than she had anticipated, as elements of her identity intertwined with the success of this venture. As she laid in bed, the walls around her felt suffocating. She closed her eyes, beckoning the boldness she had felt at the diner. But would that courage withstand the challenges she was about to face? When dawn broke, it arrived laced with uncertainty and determination. Lauren stood before the mirror, gathering her thoughts. She could turn back or embrace this latest call to authenticity. Tension coiled within her, whispering doubts mingling with excitement as she captured her resolve. Lauren was resolute. She would meet her fears head-on, even if they threatened to overwhelm her. Just as she started to prepare for the workshop, her phone vibrated beside her. A message from David, curiously asking if he could attend. This unforeseen development stirred a mixture of apprehension and intrigue within her. What does he really want? She wondered, heart racing at the thought of confrontation that loomed ahead, like an impending storm. Would he come to challenge her or support her? The workshop was set to reveal not just the truths of their workplace but also her own path. Each participant would leave a piece of themselves behind, and she wondered if she could do the same. The anticipation and fear grew hand in hand, pushing her to confront whatever awaited her head-on. Would she step into this authentic space or feel the pressure of expectations cave in, trailing behind her newfound aspirations? The morning sun sliced through the blinds, pooling warmth over Lauren's desk as she leaned over her notes, her heart hammering in rhythm with her pulse of anxiety. Her palms felt clammy against the paper, stained with doodles and fervent scrawls of thoughts that collided with her frenzied mind. Today was the day everything changed or crumbled beneath the weight of her aspirations. Every workplace conversation, every moment spent void of real connection, hurtled through her thoughts. Would David's presence be a supportive boost, or would it expose her vulnerabilities to scorn? The mere idea of standing before her colleagues, bearing her thoughts and allowing herself to be vulnerable, both thrilled and unsteadied her resolve. She was about to invite them into her world, to pull back layers of professionalism to reveal the person cloaked beneath. With her heart in her throat, she painted a clear vision of the workshop's purpose, to create a sanctuary where authenticity contrasted sharply against the mundane. It was risky, perhaps foolish, but this was her moment to shift the narrative from conformity to connection. While her brain raced with strategies, her doubts simmered dangerously underneath. Each time she rehearsed her introduction, a voice whispered that she should have stuck to the safe route, avoiding the mess of emotions and connections that could lead to inevitable rejection. But a shift began to occur in her perspective. As she mentally sketched out the workshop structure, envisioning interactive discussions and exercises, her trepidation transformed into a strategy. Vulnerability was not a sign of weakness but a channel for strength. This realization grounded her, fortifying her resolve. If she could express her fears, surely others might feel free to express theirs, too. The clock ticked down aggressively as Lauren gathered her courage, readying herself for the unexpected. Just as she stepped into the conference room, she caught sight of David at the corner of her eye, his presence sparking a jolt of adrenaline. He looked at her with an unreadable expression, and every story she had woven about him, friend, foe, mystery, unraveled in a single heartbeat. People began to filter in one by one. Lisa, Mark, and others whose names had filled her inbox were now settling into chairs, their expressions a medley of excitement and skepticism. Yet, the atmosphere shifted, curiosity hovered like a palpable mist, and an inviting energy whipped through the air. With a deep breath, Lauren felt her words carrying the weight of her entire being. Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to explore who we really are beneath the roles we play here. An electric hush fell upon them, the silence daring her to unleash the authenticity she'd guarded for so long. She could feel each gaze, including David's, penetrating layers she had hoped to keep secured. The first exercise prompted her to reveal a personal story, a choice that felt akin to peeling away skin. As she shared her experiences with fear and failure, a shift broke through. The eyes of her colleagues began to soften, they nodded, and some even shared glances laden with understanding. Each hum of agreement nurtured her confidence, disarming the self-imposed shackles that had long confined her. In that moment, she found strength in the shared experience, realizing they were grappling with their own insecurities as well. The laughter, the hidden smiles that emerged from shared stories sparked a warmth in the room that felt transformative. But just as she began to relish the connection forming with her colleagues, David's voice punctuated the air, "But isn't this just opening old wounds for people?" The challenge in his tone sliced through the intimacy she had forged. Doubt curled back into her mind, wrapping itself around her thoughts. Would he capitalize on her vulnerability to undermine her efforts? "We're not here to relive our pain but rather to learn from it," she replied, her voice steadying as adrenaline fueled her. "I believe that understanding our past helps us create a stronger present. Isn't that worth exploring?" Silence enveloped the room before someone tentatively chimed in. As discussions swelled, insecurities morphed into shared stories, collective laughter enveloped their fears, and a camaraderie began to unfurl. Yet David's eyebrow remained raised, a constant reminder of an unresolved debate lingering in the air. Lauren maneuvered the workshop, feelings of empowerment propelling her forward, but the tension coiling with each interaction with David gnawed at her confidence. Would her credibility withstand his scrutiny? As the session wound down, revelatory sparks ignited connections beyond her expectations, revitalizing a shared sense of purpose. Each participant left with a piece of themselves shared, but the question hung heavily in the air: how would David's opposition affect the new bonds forged? Just as discussions broke into light-hearted discussions, David caught her gaze again. "You managed to get them to open up, but I still have reservations." The sharpness in his words felt like a challenge she hadn't anticipated. Would she be able to stand her ground and defend the authenticity she had fought so hard to cultivate? Here it was the moment she realized her true challenge was not just the fear of failure but confronting the judgment of those she sought to unite. The stakes had risen sharply, and the burgeoning connections could easily wither under scrutiny. Lauren's heart raced as she prepared to face the real test. A confrontation of ideals was brewing, and the outcome could redefine her very concept of authenticity, both in her workplace and within herself. As Lauren concluded her workshop, a swirl of uncertainty clouded her mind. David's skepticism lingered, crystallizing her fears into a sharp focus. While her colleagues had connected, their newfound camaraderie felt precarious, teetering on the edge of doubt. How could she maintain the engagement she had cultivated when someone like David loomed as both a critic and a potential saboteur? She noticed Lisa, one of the more outspoken attendees, leaning in with a warm smile. "I've never shared anything quite like this in a meeting before," Lisa admitted, a spark of enthusiasm shining in her eyes. "You've created a space for us to actually feel heard." Flushed with appreciation, Lauren allowed herself a brief moment of warmth at this acknowledgement. Perhaps she had cracked the surface of connection after all, but as the others dispersed, murmuring compliments and exchanging newfound friendship glances, David remained. He approached her with an expression that seemed to oscillate between curiosity and a predatory sharpness. The air thickened with unspoken tension as they stood alone in the now empty conference room. "You did great, really," he said, the words seeming to hover with an unsettling ambiguity. "But it leaves me questioning. Was this workshop about authenticity, or was it just an exercise in sentimentality?" Her stomach churned as she searched for the right words. Was he really challenging her intentions, or was this just his character forced to critique while failing to see the potential that had blossomed today? "It was about vulnerability, David. That's what opens us up to connect with each other," she countered, a hint of steel edging into her voice. "You can't detach human emotion from the workplace and expect real growth." He studied her, a look of contemplation replacing his earlier skepticism. "But acknowledging old wounds can give rise to new issues," he replied. "How do you navigate the line between connection and discomfort? You're exposing people to raw emotion, isn't that irresponsible?" Lauren's temper flared momentarily. She had dared to face her deepest fears, why was she now being cornered? "It's not about being irresponsible, it's about being brave. We create our realities based on experiences, and by sharing, we build bridges, perhaps even bridges you haven't learned to walk on yet." His posture shifted slightly, as if he were beginning to reassess her words. For a fleeting heartbeat, Lauren thought she saw a glimmer of respect in his eyes. But the moment passed like a fleeting mirage as he responded with a dismissive shrug. "You talk about bravery, but I can't help but think about the fallout of this exercise. People might walk away feeling too exposed." Was he truly worried about her colleagues' well-being? Or was this just a facade cloaking his own struggles with vulnerability? As the internal questions battled for dominance, Lauren recognized the stirring resolve beneath her initial anger. "Perhaps you're right about the fallout. But isn't that the risk of genuine connection?" She challenged. "We all have our wounds, pretending they don't exist is the easy way out. I refuse to back down from confronting what lives beneath the surface." In that moment, her decision crystallized. Her development hinged on facing not just David, but also the older, restrictive version of herself, the one that feared judgment. Just as self-discovery unfolded, so too would the challenge of acceptance among her peers. The air seemed to pulse, charged with the weight of their confrontation. David's brow furrowed, and for a brief moment, uncertainty flickered across his dark eyes. Was he softening? Or was he merely strategizing for a counterattack? Then, Breaking the momentary silence, he said, "You realize you've put a target on your back for people like me." A thrill coursed through her veins. She leaned into the challenge, choosing to defy the shadows of doubt. "Let us see what you're capable of," she replied, steadying her breath. "I intend to foster more than a meeting. I want the kind of workplace that produces real change, and if I have to defend that, then so be it." As she turned away, ready to step into the outside world, a new determination ignited within her. Navigating the depths of vulnerability was uncharted territory, and now she was equipped with both the light of her truth and the weight of David's scrutiny. Little did she know that this confrontation was merely the prelude to a far more significant challenge. As conversations resumed around the office, whispers of the workshop began to ripple beyond the conference room walls, altering perceptions. The magnitude of her journey was growing, intertwining her fears with the threads of influence that could reshape her workplace and perhaps her relationship with David as well. What did he truly seek to protect, and at what cost? As confidence surged within her, Lauren found herself poised on the cusp of something deeper than a mere professional awakening. Would courage and authenticity be enough to withstand the scrutiny to come? Only time would tell. The weeks following the workshop drifted into a blur, yet an undeniable shift had occurred within Lauren. Each day she returned to the office armed with a renewed sense of purpose, her single goal sharpening like a blade, to cultivate a transformative workplace culture. However, as whispers about her workshop traveled through the halls, the climate hovered somewhere between curiosity and apprehension. Was her method revolutionary, or merely reckless? Lisa continued to approach Lauren during breaks, her eyes alight with enthusiasm. "People are still talking about your workshop. I overheard Matt say he wants to try something similar in his team. You've inspired a ripple effect." Lisa bubbled, starry-eyed. But, despite this, Lauren's heart remained heavy with David's skepticism. Every interaction with him carried an undercurrent of unease, their last confrontation playing on repeat in her mind. How could she step into her role as a leader and champion for vulnerability when the very embodiment of criticism loomed just an office away? The air became thick with tension whenever they crossed paths, a palpable reminder of the push and pull between progress and opposition. One afternoon, Lauren was gathered with her department for a project meeting when David arrived punctually, a mere shadow among the team. She caught his eye and felt an electric jolt of defiance. Today would be different. Today, she would reclaim her authority. "Let us discuss strategies for fostering creativity in our next project," Lauren began, her voice steady. "I'd like us to brainstorm in pairs, something along the lines of what we did during the workshop." David raised an eyebrow. "You think that promising candor will drive results, or is this another attempt to build community through emotional vulnerability?" His voice dripped with skepticism, a deliberate challenge. Lauren hesitated only for a moment. "It's not just about vulnerability, it's about collaboration and trust. Creativity thrives in an environment where individuals feel safe to express divergent ideas without fear of being ridiculed. You know as well as I do that walls stifle innovation." As David considered her words, Lauren seized the moment. A flutter of exhilaration ignited her resolve. She proposed that the pairs share personal stories that related to their work, an exercise in connection that would ideally silence his critiques by showcasing the warmth generated through honesty. The room filled with murmurs of hesitation, the ghosts of past fears rattling in the minds of her colleagues. Yet, one by one, they began to put their guards down, exchanging stories enriched by vulnerability and laughter. After the session, Lauren noticed a change. People lingered and chatted, sharing ideas and laughter, as though they were no longer mere co-workers but a network of allies. Yet in the corner, David stood unyielding. He observed them with that same inscrutable expression, but this time, there was a flicker of something else, perhaps intrigue, possibly frustration. As the evening approached, Lauren left the meeting with an exhilarating surge of energy, fueled by newfound belief in her vision. But as she passed David's office on her way out, her pulse quickened when she noticed him staring at her, his gaze sharp as a knife. "What were you hoping to achieve today?" he asked, his voice low but laced with intensity. "Are you leading them into a blind trust or playing a dangerous game?" Instinctively, Lauren took a step back, her resolve teetering under the weight of his disbelief. I'm trying to build trust, David, a foundation for authentic communication. You can criticize my approach all you want, but if I can help them connect on a deeper level, maybe they'll flourish beyond their current limitations. David tilted his head, an amused skeptic, challenging her stance. You're setting them up for fall, Lauren. When emotions run high, clarity fades. Are you ready for the fallout? He stepped closer, and the air between them throbbed with tension, forcing her to confront the reality of his words. What if she had unwittingly exposed them to discomfort that could threaten their progress? Just then, the lights in the office flickered, a sudden storm looming outside. It felt inadequate, nebulous, much like the path ahead. The clouds drew a parallel to her thoughts, echoing the mixture of courage and doubt she felt bubbling beneath the surface. If I have to stand alone, she answered truthfully, I will. At least it would be worth it to witness their growth, even if it's uncomfortable. Isn't taking risks what truly matters? The moment hung between them, charged yet expansive, as if time itself paused to witness the confrontation. David's expression was unreadable, and Lauren's heart hammered against her chest. Would she be able to forge her own path despite the looming challenge David posed over her professional journey? As the storm began to settle, the path ahead remained shrouded, but with clarity beginning to dawn, Lauren knew the stakes were far greater than her professional ambitions. The moment of reckoning was fast approaching. Could she weather the storm, or would the tension with David escalate into something more destabilizing? Would vulnerable honesty ultimately become her strength, or would it expose her to a reckoning she wasn't ready to face? The upcoming days would not be easy, but she was ready to commit, knowing full well the risks. Could she truly reclaim a space for authenticity in the midst of dissent? The question just hung there, echoing deep within her, poised to unravel in ways she could hardly imagine. As the weeks passed since the workshop, Lauren felt a palpable shift coursing through the office, as if a wave of transformation was beginning to take shape. Colleagues exchanged ideas more freely, their interactions infused with the warmth of sincerity. Yet, the tension with David stubbornly lingered, like an ever-present shadow. It gnawed at her with the constant reminder of obstacles still ahead, yet she felt an undeniable momentum building within herself. Driven by purpose, Lauren immersed herself in her role, carving out collaborative projects that reflected the values she held dear. She championed new initiatives that encouraged open dialogue and creativity, infusing them with the essence of authenticity she had discovered in herself. Each day felt like an awakening, as confidence replaced doubt in her decisions. She was no longer just a passive participant in her work but an active agent for change. One afternoon, as she crafted a proposal for an innovative project that encouraged her team to explore their creative boundaries, she felt a rush of pride. It wasn't about meeting corporate goals anymore but about nurturing growth. She could feel the echoes of her initial challenges fade, replaced by tangible achievements. Lauren, this is brilliant! Lisa exclaimed, scanning the proposal. You're setting us on fire with this energy. The affirmation sparked joy in her heart. It was no longer just her artistic drive being supported, she was igniting a passion in others that she lacked before. Yet, amid this newfound success, questions about David lingered like an unaddressed storm. Despite her progress, she understood that true resolution with him would determine the lasting impact of her metamorphosis. Determined, Lauren knocked on David's door one afternoon, her heartbeat racing with each step as she cast aside her apprehension. This was it. Their dynamic had stagnated for too long, and she could no longer afford to let fear of confrontation hold her back. Can we talk? She asked, her voice steady, unwavering despite the internal turbulence. David looked up from his work, his interest piqued. All right, let us hear it. In that moment, as she settled into the chair opposite him, Lauren felt the weight of her aspirations coalescing around her. I want to acknowledge our previous discussions, she began boldly. I respect your perspective, and despite the skepticism, I believe our workplace can thrive on openness. But it requires us to be honest about our reservations and fears. She noticed a flicker of surprise in his eyes, the vulnerability she hadn't perceived before. You think that this emotional approach can coexist with the corporate framework? He challenged gently. I know it can, she countered, her confidence fortified with each passing moment. Businesses grow when people connect, and vulnerability can spark creativity and innovation. It's not absence of structure, it's about building within a framework that includes the human experience. David studied her, his gaze piercing as if he were searching for cracks in her resolve. And you think your colleagues are truly ready to confront their vulnerabilities? There's risk involved. Absolutely, she replied, fueled by a conviction she had nurtured since that pivotal dinner at the diner. But isn't that the essence of being human? We can't shield ourselves from growth because it comes with discomfort. We have to move beyond our fears. A moment of silence hung in the air, charged with possibilities. She saw David wrestle within his own thoughts, an internal struggle reflected in the deepening lines on his brow. You've changed, he finally admitted, though the tone was softened, giving her hope. Have I? She pressed, letting the question linger. Perhaps, he noted, intrigued. But you must realize, the corporate world hasn't changed. Risk remains. It's a delicate balance. Lauren felt empowered, ready to take the reins of her narrative once more. But that doesn't mean we can't strive for it. If people are willing to explore their own truths, perhaps we can redirect the course towards something more meaningful, something that resonates beyond profits. David hesitated, assessing her words with newfound respect. You're not backing down, are you? No, she affirmed, her heart pounding with resolve. I want to create a workspace where people can thrive, not just survive. I believe there's strength in vulnerability, it connects us with our worst fears and our greatest dreams. Together we can confront both. A slow smile crept onto David's face, and in that moment, something shifted. The smile represented a shared understanding, an acknowledgement that their once oppositional views were beginning to align in a way she hadn't anticipated. Very well, Lauren, he said at last, his tone lightened. What's your plan? As they shared ideas and strategies, an exhilarating sense of camaraderie pulsed in the air. The walls that had once divided them began to crumble, leaving space for collaboration. For the first time, she sensed the potential for real change, not just for her colleagues but for the organization as a whole. That evening, walking through the city, Lauren relished the unbroken thread of confidence woven throughout her day. Releasing her fears into the light stood in stark contrast to her initial hesitation. The day she was able to confront David, and define who she was both as an artist and as a leader, marked not just a victory in their dialogue but a deep achievement in her own growth. Lauren knew this was just the beginning. She had faced her fears, confronted the doubts that once tethered her, and emerged on the other side with courage lighting her path forward. Her artistic spirit was no longer constrained by external obstacles, instead, it fueled the fire of authenticity in her professional life. As she embraced her journey, a vibrant sense of fulfillment enveloped her. She felt recognized not just for her skills but for the depth of her vision. The accolades would come, she was confident of that, but what held weight was the newfound conviction that had transformed her approach to art and business. And with that, she decided to create a recurring space for authenticity in her workplace, a safe haven for ongoing dialogues, where expectations would be challenged, and connections deepened. This was her moment, not just of exploration but of profound achievement. She had come full circle, no longer hiding behind the confines of uncertainty, instead, standing proudly, ready to inhabit the success she had worked so hard to realize. Now, there's a pivotal question to reflect upon. What transformations are you willing to make to unlock your true potential? You need to subscribe now to the channel for more exclusive emotional stories like this one. Leave a like now to support the algorithm and keep these stories alive. Comment your reactions and theories about Lauren's journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring conclusion unfold. Your support fuels stories of personal overcoming.